to Relationship Talk. I'm Patricia Ireland of Insight for Life. I am the Relationship Magic Coach. And each week, Jeff, my colleague, and I talk about different topics that affect our relationships in very big ways. And we have a very strong topic today, fear. And fear is a big part of our daily lives. So we're going to discuss how to work through all that. Hello. Welcome. And Jeff is just about to join.
Hi.
Hey, Jeff.
Happy Friday. How's it going?
Friday. It's going good. So we got a big topic to talk about today.
We do.
Fear's a really biggie. So fear's this natural thing that we feel. It's like this crazy entity that goes on in our lives on a regular basis. So why do you believe this is?
Well, I think it's part of, it's hardwired in our brain. It's a survival mechanism. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have survived for thousands of years if we didn't have it. It's the thing that keeps us from walking up to the edge of a building and jumping off. It's the thing that keeps us from stepping out in front of a bus.
Good thing.
All good things. So, it's hardwired. It has a job to do, which is to protect us, to keep us safe, and it takes that job very seriously, and it's quite good at it.
Yeah, too seriously sometimes.
Sometimes too seriously, for sure. What do you think?
Yeah, it is something that we really have to decipher, I think, is what's, like you're saying, survival mode, and what's actually something like a protective mechanism to save us from, doing like a risk, taking a risk that, could potentially benefit us, and knowing and distinguishing between the two, and really comes down to how it makes us feel. I think is where a lot of people get stuck in that. So how or when does fear become an issue for people throughout our life?
Well, so I think, there's different types of threats that we face on a daily basis. I think some are physical threats and some are more what you would classify as emotional threats. Our mind can't tell the difference. So it reacts the exact same way, whether there's a physical threat that could endanger our life, or whether there's an emotional threat that we think could endanger our life, but the odds are it probably won't. Sure. And so that's where it does. It feels the exact same, right? I standing in line to get on a roller coaster, that feeling that you have of like the knot in your stomach, the
panic.
I'm gonna throw up. Yeah. You get that same feeling. You get that same feeling if you're gonna walk into your boss's office and ask for a raise. So I think that's where it really gets us into trouble, is when it's more of an emotional thing that we're doing that seems like it's a threat, but it may not be in all reality.
So is there anybody watching who's having difficulty with any kind of fear, or is caught up in some kind of fear where you feel stuck, where you feel like you can't move forward from it? Just let us know in the chat. We're happy to discuss it and work through it. And in the meantime, so how or when does it become an issue, and why, do you think?
Well, I think it becomes an issue when it keeps you from doing something that you really want to do, or it keeps you from showing up in a way that you really want to show up. So in a relationship, since that's what we talk about primarily here, if you're acting or behaving in a way that you don't really want to because you're afraid of how the other person's going to perceive you or what they're going to think about you, then that's not a good thing. Right? We want to be ourselves. And when we're not able to be ourselves because fear has kind of taken over, I think that's what gets us into trouble. We're not allowed. We feel like I was just going to say, we feel like we can't say what we want to say or, stand up for ourselves or have boundaries or all those types of things.
Yeah, I can really relate.
When do you think it becomes a problem?
Yeah, I had a lot of difficulty. I grew up walking on eggshells, so in my relationship, I did the same. So it was a lot of fear of what I could say, couldn't say, how to say it, those types of things, and it really gets in the way of a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm. We bring different backgrounds and different things that have happened to us and different, like we talked about last week, the silent contracts of how we think we're supposed to behave in a relationship. And it really, it's something that we need to talk through and work out what our relationship's going to look like. But fear gets in the way of us having that conversation. And so we do things that we don't want to do, or we act in a way that we don't want to act. And we end up in a relationship that we may not want to be in because, we're not being authentically ourselves.
Yeah, when the fear becomes too great, it's not worth the aggravation, the ordeal that we're going through. But sometimes the fears can be worked through, can be healed within the relationship that you're in. And luckily with my husband and I, that was the case. We had a lot to sort out, mind you, but he was willing and I was willing. And I think that's the biggest piece to that is a willingness. Sometimes fear is just too great and they're not willing to go there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. The want to is what's critical there. And a lot of us stay in situations that we don't want to be in because of fear of what the other looks like, right? Until it gets to a point where the pain level is so high that we have to do something about it. But we can deal with that much earlier if we set some of the fear aside.
Yeah, especially if there's kids involved, because our kids, we usually don't want them to be without both parents, and it becomes another ordeal in itself, and who's going to get custody and all these things, and not to mention where we're going to live, and it just adds more fear and pressure and stress to the whole situation.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't see that there is a way to change. I mean, I certainly didn't with my relationship until well, we went to see a counselor first, and not that I have anything against therapists or counselors, but it didn't work out too well for us. But we did eventually go see a coach, and it changed my life and how I dealt with my fears and how I worked through all that. And it makes a massive difference to our situation. I remember it being like foreign to me that this was even possible to make better.
Yeah, and I mean, I think whether it's a therapist or a counselor or a coach, personal fit is important, because we saw a counselor as well initially, and for whatever reason, it just was not jiving between us and her, and so we again, right, like fear, if this isn't going to work with this counselor, it's never going to work. Well, maybe not, but you have to push past that fear and go try somebody else and see what happens. And we actually did find somebody who was really great after that initial trying somebody else.
I think it is to do more with personal preference. If it works for you, great. But if it doesn't, when it doesn't, that makes it harder to even go to the next possible thing, because You don't know what you're gonna get. But when you find that right, keep looking. As long as you keep looking, I think to find that right person, it changes things for you.
Yeah.
You notice a difference right away. Like I mentioned before, right from my first session, it was like, what is this? Like it blew my mind.
Yeah.
So how or when does, or sorry, what is the social part of fear? Where does society come into this?
Well, I mean, I think it comes in all sorts of ways. You know, a lot of my challenge when I was running into issues a couple of years ago and not very happy with my life, it had to do with this perception of what life should be. And that certainly comes from society, right? Like we should be living the American dream. We're Americans. Um, you know,
Fitting in, gotta be like the
yeah,
Joneses.
yeah, you got to keep up with the neighbors and have all the nice stuff. And that means working all the time to make sure that you can have the money that you need to do those things. And so, yeah, I mean, it's pervasive. You know, when we're concerned about what society thinks of us, that is going to trigger fear.
Yeah, it makes such a big impact on us too. It's like whether it's how we look or appear to people or what we're saying to people, or I mean, there's so many aspects. I mean, just even life through death itself, as people think that you're supposed to have build a family, find a partner, build a family, get married, buy the house, and all these things, and in certain orders, where it's like, oh, well, you're not, you don't fit the criteria. You're supposed to get married first. You're supposed to, then buy the house. Because according to society, I did everything all ass backwards.
So did we.
Got into the relationship, had the kids, and then bought the house, and then we finally got married in the backyard of our house. And I had one family member who was very expressive on her concern about all that.
Yeah.
And how it wasn't proper and it wasn't appropriate. But it is what it is, and we have to accept these things, and other people either accept it or they don't.
Well, and that was, I was checking all the boxes, just like you just mentioned, right? Like the marriage, the go to college, get a degree, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids, get pets. Just got, walking through life, checking the boxes. Yep, I did that. Yep, I did that. And then, got to a point in the mid-30s.
Now, right?
Yeah, get promoted, get to be where you want to be in your job. And then it's like, okay, I'm 35. The next box to check is retirement. What am I going to do between now and then?
Yeah, and who's to say that retirement should be at any certain age?
Right.
Retirement could be at 35.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're concerned with what others are going to think of you, fear is going to show up. So society plays a big role in it.
So what about our parents? How do our parents affect all this fear stuff?
Well, before I move on to that question, I did want to just say, I just read an article today about some girl who's going on social media and going out in public and doing these crazy things to see if people are paying attention, if they're going to react to what she's doing. And it's been interesting to see that nobody really cares. So while we're all worried about what everybody's going to think about us, the truth is they're all so wrapped up in themselves that they're probably not paying that much attention to what we're doing anyways. So
yeah, I actually, funny you mention that. I have a friend that does social experiments in Toronto, and he'll go out there with a cane, sometimes travel on the bus with a cane and see who actually, helps him or respects him, and, more so because he's got a cane, or if they're actually the opposite, they're ignorant to it, and he's found a good mix. Like some are just don't even, like you said, acknowledge the fact. Some are even harsher because he has a cane,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is just mind blowing. And then there's, the odd ones that are, very courteous and respectful, but in Toronto, they're actually few and far between, apparently,
Yeah.
which is surprising.
I think that's that what you just described is a good characterization of all the people in our life. There are some that aren't going to like us no matter what we do. There are some that are going to not even care about us, and there are other ones that are really going to go out of their way to have a relationship with us. But we worry so much about the other 2/3. So
Yeah, and that's why it's always about just pleasing ourselves, because you're never going to make everybody happy. Like you mentioned last week, the thirds, find your thirds, the people that are your people, and they're going to support you.
yeah.
Hello, Sue. Welcome.
Yeah. So back to parents, what's interesting is that they're actually finding that fear can be passed down genetically, even from generations past our parents. So could be things in our life that we're afraid of that we may not really even know why that is there. And so, I think that comes from our parents too. If they had things that they were scared of, that gets passed down to us. So, my dad, for example, is growing up, his dad was an alcoholic and worked construction jobs, and there was never consistent money coming in. And so for him, having this stable job that he was at for 35 years until he retired was really important. And so that fear, I'm sure, gets passed down to me. And in some ways, I was trying to repeat the same thing without even really being aware of that's what I was trying to do.
Sometimes it's just verbally, like how they communicate themselves to us. And other times it's actually kind of in our, if anyone believes in reincarnation, it's in our DNA, basically. It's like how we're kind of programmed from the previous lives, where we have this unfinished business, per se. And I get that it's not, something we can put our finger on, so we don't, we can't see it. We don't know this for a fact, but it's amazing how certain emotions come up in us, and, our parents might not completely reflect that, but it's there, and it seems like this big driving fear behind what we do in our life.
Yeah.
So anybody else have any other questions they want to ask us while we're talking about the big old fear? What fears do you have going on for you? Have your parents ever affected your fears that you are aware of? Or society? Pardon me. A few people on. We're not chatty today. Can you hear them?
So what happens to you when you notice that you're afraid?
Ugh. I get the heavy chest and I vibrate, and I remember in high school I even used to cry. I mean, I'm known to be a crier. A lot of my videos I cry, but it's usually emotional. But I remember doing things in high school. I used to just cry the night before that, oh my God, I was so scared to do presentation or whatever it might have been. Bridget says she feels it in her stomach. Yeah, it's that gut-wrenching bleh. You're gonna throw up. Is that how you get it, in the gut?
In the gut for sure for me. Headaches. Headaches seem to be a big way that it shows up for me, where I kind of get stuck in over-analyzation mode to the point where I give myself a headache um, trying to think through things. Sweating, and I get red. So
My
pretty
granddaughter does.
obvious.
My granddaughter, she'll like, if she's embarrassed or if she's scared or if she goes beet red, you can read her like a book.
Yep. So
Yeah, it says almost nauseating. Yeah. So I remember the worst, the worst experience I had. It was something I needed to share with my dad, and he was very receptive, and he was like, I just blurted out. I said, we got to chat. He was like, okay, I'll see you at this time. I was like, okay. And then all the way down to go see him, it was about half hour, 45-minute drive. And oh my God, I thought I was going to throw up. I stopped like 6 times on the way down. And in this, it's not that far distance, but in that time frame, I threw up twice. I
oh wow.
got there and I was still vibrating. I was still nauseated. Yeah, it was a very important topic. And the funny thing is I had actually gotten the first hug from him that was the most loving experience I'd ever had with him. And he was very open and very respectful, and it was like so relieving.
Yeah, so
after
it didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
I had this whole thing planned just in case this is going to happen, that's going to happen. None of it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fear was in charge.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, and you know, if left unchecked, it could even change the way that you interact with your dad in that instance, which could change the whole interaction and create a different result too. So
Yeah, it
really.
started to open up doors with him and I, and it's actually started to open up more since, but yeah, that was definitely our starting point. So, and it took me just like, I had to get to the point where it was like, I had it, and like I wanted him to be there, but you know, that's at this point, it didn't matter, you know, whether you are or aren't, I got to get this out, you know, you decide. Even though it was nauseating. Bridget says, my fear was crippling in my past, stopped me from doing things and facing responsibilities. It's not like that anymore. Awesome. So what kind of scenarios did you have, Bridget? Is there anything, what was the worst fear that you had back then? And I find like I still, like every day, I think fear creeps up in different things that I'm doing. Maybe not to that extreme, but
yeah. The goal, I don't think, is ever to get rid of fear, because I don't think that's possible.
no, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I mean, it's hardwired in our brain. I don't, unless we cut out that part of our brain, I don't know that we're gonna get rid of it. So
Being alone, unloved. Yes, feeling alone and unloved is a deep fear.
yeah.
So how did you move forward from it, Bridget? She says that was such a part of my childhood. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how these fears, a lot of them are attached to our childhood.
Yeah.
Learning to love myself. Because loving ourselves is a big part of that, and getting, like I was saying, like with my father, is like knowing that this is something that you want or need in your life, and you know what, you're putting it out there, and it's just, you know, is what it is. Like when you get to that, knowing that, you know what, I deserve this, but if you're not willing, that's okay. You know, and it's just acceptance, I think, is to say, here it is.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
Well, I think what it ultimately is you're not attached to an outcome.
Right.
When there's no specific outcome that has to happen, then I can do anything
Right.
because it doesn't matter.
Right.
But when there's a specific outcome that we're going after, then the stakes get a lot higher, and it causes us to not do things that we want to do.
It says giving myself what I needed and becoming secure in myself. Trust in myself helps to elevate the fear. Oh, alleviate
Yeah.
the fear.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, even like with the analogy of the roller coaster, it's like if you look at the roller coaster and you know you go, oh, I'm not going to die. This is going to be wonderful. We're going to have a blast. You know, it changes that outcome belief that we have going on. It's how we see it. If it's like, oh my God, this guy died 5 years ago on this ride, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we get stuck in what's what ifs. Fear is a lot of what ifs, and we can go through a billion what ifs, but what if it actually works? What if it turns out great? We won't know unless we do.
Well, what's interesting about roller coasters for me is it's not that I'm afraid that I'm going to die. It's that I'm afraid of how I'm going to feel afterwards. Because in the past, I've gotten, I just motion sickness wise, it doesn't work great for me. And I can do it, but where the fear showed, or overcoming the fear showed up for me, was being secure enough in myself to say, you know what, I know this ride's going to make me feel sick, and so I'm not going to do it. Even if you're going to sit here and try to pressure me into doing it or whatever, I have to sit over here by myself for half an hour. I'm going to do that because I don't like how it makes me feel. And so I'll stand up for myself. Whereas in the past, I would have, oh, sure, I'll go on the ride. And I would have been dreading it the whole time. And then I would have had a headache afterwards. And so I think that's, just learning to say, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't like how it makes me feel.
Sometimes things that like the more comfortable we get with fears, the symptoms behind it get less and less. But then there's some that it's like as we get older, those symptoms seem to increase too medically. So
Yeah.
so there's a lot more involved in that, but fear obviously being the trigger, but there's other underlying reasons why it could or would be amplified.
Yeah.
So what's really happening when we're afraid? What's really the deep-rooted stuff?
Well, I think there's something that we're trying to protect ourselves from, and it's usually something that we're going to think about ourselves, or some feeling that we don't want to feel if we do this, or something that we're scared everybody else is going to think about us. Whether they will actually think that or not, it doesn't matter. It's just what's happening in our head. So that's usually what gets fear going. We do sit here and we tend to think of other symptoms of or responses to fear as our big problems. Like if I'm a complainer, that's probably what I see as my problem. But in reality, there's some fear that's causing us to complain. Or if I'm really hard on myself, I see that as the problem, but there's some fear happening there. So most of us aren't aware of it. We tend to think there are other things happening, and we may not know why, but
Yeah, that was a big thing when I went to my coach, is I had no idea. And even still sometimes there's times when I'm going through something and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I it's always a fear, but it's that that knowledge of, oh, here we go again. You think it's like, oh, it's never ending. You got to get used to that. It's never ending. but it's actually being able to catch them now. Once we start to catch them, it makes that process easier.
Yeah.
It wasn't the beginning.
No, it's not. And I think that's, a lot of people ask me when we work together with coaching, like what am I going to get out of this? And it's like, well, I don't know, because I don't know where all we're going to go, but what I'm hoping that you get out of it is some awareness of the role that fear is playing in your life, because I think that will help you make the other changes you want to make going forward.
Right, because the important part is knowing that you have that choice to make that change or to grow in a certain way. But really, these talks are just to help people to understand the potential for themselves, or to see, if they can relate to this stuff and understand where things are starting to come from, so that if they do want support with these things, then we are available. And this is why we do this. We do this Jeff and I do this out of the kindness of our heart. We set aside this time for all of you so that we can help in whatever way we can. So by all means, ask your questions, put it out there. Like I said, there is no right or wrong, no bad or good.
Don't let your fear get the best of you. Ask the question.
Exactly. Bridget says, my fear was rooted in lack of confidence, believing in myself, and knowing my worth.
Yeah.
Yep. That's usually where it's rooted. Those not feeling lovables and not feeling worthy and believing that we're good enough, those are all big ouchies in the system. Is there a self?
I don't know that I understand the question.
I don't understand the question. Sorry, Jacob, can you rephrase that? Not sure what you mean. Do we see with all of our being the fact that the me is blending in with the white background there? Can you read that?
It went away too fast. So I'm trying to find it again. I apologize for you having to stare at my forehead. Did you catch it?
The fact that the me, the self, I think it is the ego, and the so-called true or higher self, which it's in that white spot again. Something fragments of the I is the very movement of fear. Let me try to put that together. Do we see with all our being the fact that the me, the self, the ego, and the so-called true or higher self, which are different fragments of the I, is the very movement of fear? Are you catching that?
Yes, I'm thinking about it.
It's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Very deep.
Yeah, I mean, I think our fear does come from within us.
Where there is even an iota of fear, is there love? I believe absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think without love, we wouldn't have fear to begin with. Actually, in my program, it's a lot of what I teach is I base emotions on 4 emotions: happy, sad, scared, angry, and they're all a reflection of happy, which to me is love. So we wouldn't be any of those 4 emotions if love wasn't the primary. There is no love.
So
Sorry,
I
everything is love.
Yeah, I mean,
Everything you do.
I was just going to say, fear's job is to protect us. If we didn't love us, what would it have to protect?
There's only what is, the isness, the fact, the act, the actual, what is actually taking place from moment to moment.
That is true, right? There are things that are just happening, and then we take and put our spin on them, either positive or negative.
But I still believe that comes from loving ourselves and loving other people.
Yeah.
Because different things happen. I mean, I wouldn't get mad at somebody if I didn't feel, like that my love was being questioned or rattled in some way.
So he just asked if we were free of a bunch of things, and the answer is no.
No.
Fear, all these things come up and happen in us.
I believe, Jacob, that what we're trying to say is these things come up because of love, because we care about this person or this situation, or just even riding the roller coaster. We care about ourselves, or we wouldn't be worried about dying or throwing up, or whatever the case may be. It's because I care and love about myself. So I believe love is a big part of every emotion that we have. Fear is not based on logic for the most part. Yeah, it's.
Are you saying if you're concerned about yourself, then there is no love in your life? I guess, is that what the question is?
The self is the very denial of love. I'm curious, Jacob, why you feel that way. The self itself.
I'm not sure I'm following.
So why is it you?
I would have a lot more questions.
Yeah, starting up a lot of questions for me too. Bridget says fear is not based on logic for the most part. See it now. Oh, it's an irrefutable, observable fact. How is that? Like I said, I'm curious. I'm not quite sure how you mean that. The self abstracts what it thinks love is. I think the abstract that you're mentioning to me is that not understanding how we feel, not understanding what's really going on for us. So it's confusing in the mind, but it doesn't mean, in my understanding, that it doesn't exist. I mean, the love is there. I wouldn't be feeling it. I wouldn't be feeling this weird feeling or questioning it, the why and what's going on. You understand what I mean?
Makes sense to me.
Me too. Thought is limited, love is not.
Jacob, I would love to ask what you're looking to get out of this, of listening to this. I'd be curious.
It says, yeah, heart and soul are different. Head and heart, rather. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, I teach a lot around alignment, and one thing with alignment is, if your head, heart, and soul are not in alignment as to what you want to do, that's where fear can show up, right? And it can take one thing or the other and kind of pit them against each other to keep you from moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's...
Well, Jacob, if you ever want to Zoom me or Trish, I think both of us would be more than open to that. So feel free.
Absolutely. He could join. If you're on a mobile device, Jacob, you're welcome to join us. We'd be happy to join. Desktop. Yeah, unfortunately, Facebook doesn't work well with desktops. But yes, Jacob, either of us are welcome to do a Zoom call with you. My Calendly is available above. I will place both Jeff's and mine above this video once it's complete, and we'd be happy to do that with you. Individually or together even, I'm sure.
So
then that'll work.
So how do you get past your fear?
Good question. I really find that you really have to understand for yourself that it is a fear to begin with. Like, to first acknowledge it, because without acknowledgement, we're avoiding it, or we're redirecting the fear on other people or other things. And so really acknowledging it first, and then seeing where it came from, why I'm feeling that way. Because then you can actually see that difference between survival and this is just risky. This is just that, risk that's not going to affect, am I going to die, is the first question I ask myself. Is it life or death? No. Okay. And then work down the chains, and if it's something that really is important to me or matters to me or my future, then I get that it needs to happen. So it's really just pushing through.
Yeah. I think a lot of us feel like we need confidence to take the risk, to get outside our comfort zone. But in reality, it's the opposite. We have to get outside our comfort zone, take the risk, and see the outcome, which helps us get past that fear, that fear may not be
and really
real.
It's like any practice, like when you start a new job or when you're learning to ride a bike, you're practicing, you're trying, you're figuring it out. You notice as kids we have less fear. It's like you could just, they'll jump on that bike and go, and they'll fall about 10 times and they'll just keep getting back up, and they jump back on and go until they get it, because they get that it's just a practice, and they'll figure it out. And I don't even know that we process that as a child. It's just I want to ride like them, and that's the determination. So we just do. Well, it's the same with anything in our lives. If we just do, but we have this fear of looking bad, or not measuring up, or looking silly, and it's all in our mind.
Yeah. So take the risk and see what happens.
That's right. Because it's never as hard as we think it is. I remember the first live video I did. I was like, oh my God, and I'm sweating and all this stuff. And then I did it, and I was like, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was exciting. Let's do it again. And it was nothing like I thought it was.
Yeah, and the more you practice, the better it gets. I think that's one of the cool things, is the more risks we take, the more we practice, the easier it gets, and the more it becomes part of our comfort zone. And that's really how you get past fear, is to keep taking those risks and build your comfort zone. The good thing that happens, though, is that because we're people, we're always striving for more. There are going to be more fears and more risks for us to take that we, may not even be considering at the moment, because we're stuck where we're at. But once we get past that, a whole new world can open up. And yeah.
Bruce says, yes, of course you have to acknowledge it and work through it to understand it and grow from it. Jake says the word is not the thing, the description is not the described.
I don't know that I would agree that there's no goal. I think we can want to get somewhere. We just want to detach from the outcome, because without wanting to go anywhere, we wouldn't move forward at all. So we have to move, or we don't have to, I guess. Nobody has to do anything, but most of us want to be moving towards something. We have an idea of what that something is. But if we're locked in on this is the outcome, we can't see all these other possibilities that could open up in front of us, that might take us somewhere completely different than what we were anticipating.
Yeah, I remember just eight months ago, I think it was more than that now, last June, I started the program where we met, and oh my gosh, it was like fear after fear after fear, just building this business, because it was a lot of things that I wasn't used to doing and hadn't experienced yet, and it was just breakthrough after breakthrough. And but by breakthrough, it's you're pushing through all those fears and you're seeing where they're coming from and why. And I remember in the beginning of the program, it was like so many nonstop.
Yeah.
But it's the drive. It's what it means to actually achieve that goal, like what it would do for you, how it serves you, what does that accomplishment mean for you? Because our deepest whys is what's really going to push us from staying stuck in that fear. Wanting is an escape from being with what is, which brings its own action, not based on thought. With any want, it's like a need or a desire or a goal. It's the same thing as we're looking to grow. We're looking to expand ourselves in some way, shape, or form. So it's that deeper reason to push through these fears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a dog chasing its own tail. Sometimes it feels that way. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
See the futility of that. It's about how we're grasping it, I think. Sometimes we don't quite comprehend why we're feeling the way we are. This gives birth to inner silent space. Yes. And sometimes meditating is one of the best things we can do in this state, to really get our head clear.
Yeah, any proactive behavior that we're consciously making a choice to do to help pull us out of fear.
But the struggle never ends. We're going to, fear is a part of us, like Jeff said, it's hardwired. We're going to have that going on in the background at different times in our lives because of Karen.
Yeah.
Who is the chooser? Not sure what you mean there, Jacob. So what else can we do about it? We mentioned meditation, pushing through. What are some other ways that we can push through all this fear or whatever fear we have going on for us at the time?
Yeah, it's a great question. you know, I like taking a walk, breathing, petting the dog or cat. Anything that you do that kind of helps remind you of who you are, I think helps you move through, see the fear, and remind yourself of who you are and what you want to do, and that you can move through it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned cat or dog, because animals have that really great effect on us. Even horses and, you know, you name it, even farm animals. I see that some people use farm animals as, you know, the soothing, because you're actually distracting your brain. You're actually concentrated on that pet. So that's why they say it's very stress relieving, because you're focused on them, and it takes away from the stress or the anxiety that you're going through, and you're actually clearer because you're not coming from that, oh my God, space. You know, you're decompressing, you're relaxing and chilling out.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bridget had some great ones too: exercise, dancing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love the dancing.
Music can be a really great one for a lot of people. So, yeah, just reminding yourself who you are and what you want, why you're doing what you're doing, I think helps us move through that.
Moving away from what is feeding the illusion, the eye. Moving away from what is.
A lot of deep stuff coming from Jacob today here.
Yes, you are very deep there, Jacob. All escape. Yes, anything that helps us decompress, you know. Like British says, sometimes just a girl's night or a guy's night, poker night, whatever. It's you're just changing your state. You're getting out of that head game that you're playing with yourself to actually get clearer.
Yeah.
Because yes, we will have a lot of resistance when we're like, oh my God, I can't figure this out. This isn't working. And as long as you're doing that, you're tense, you're stressed, you got anxiety, and your brain is going to just keep seeing those negative effects over and over and over.
Yeah.
We need to change our state into a much calmer one.
I agree.
Thought invents abstractions. Being in the now. Anything that makes us present.
Yeah, that's it. Being present, I think, helps us move through the fear. Yeah.
Yes, getting out of the head. Practice. That's easy to achieve. I even have a technique of stopping the head, the ego mind from spinning. And it's counting to 10, from 1 to 10, but each number you count a little stronger. And you can do this in your head, because you can do this anywhere, but it's powering out each number louder and louder. And what this exercise does is really trains the brain. It stops the brain from doing the oh my gods and this is happening, that's happening. And if your mind starts to wander during the process, you start back at 1. So it's retrain the brain. So still head spinning, keep going back to 1, because it changes the way our mind expects to run, because we're so used to the brain has its own function and we just let it go. So we get caught up in that fear of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is happening. And it changes our state, because there's so many things where, you know, we can assume things that are going on and get caught up in them. And that exercise for slowing the ego mind really, really helps. Because it's us controlling our own brain, saying, no, you need to slow down, you need to stop.
Yeah.
Practice is time. Time is an illusion invented by thought.
I think Jacob's having himself a good time messing with us. I'm just going to call what I see here.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Hope you had fun.
I hope we're entertaining you, Jacob. That's the main thing.
That is the main thing.
And if you're getting something from this, that's a bonus.
Yep. So what's next? Have we covered fear? Does anybody have any other questions?
I think we nailed it
Okay.
with Jacob's help.
With Jacob's help.
So next week, in light of fear this week, it brings up a lot of limiting beliefs. So a lot of these trigger points that cause us to go in deeper into this fear. So next week, we'll be talking about limiting beliefs. So we'll look forward to seeing you again next week. And thank you for coming out, everyone who is here. Again, if you are watching the replay, please put #replay. We'd still love to hear any of your comments, your questions. All lovely. Yes, happy Friday, Bridget.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend.
Everybody, we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, Jeff,
All right.
for being here.
Yep.
Till next time.
Talk to you
Bye,
later.
everyone.
Bye.